Hey everybody, it's Mega Blue Charizard, and today we are reacting to Geeks for Fun. What if the Norse gods were in Dragon Ball Part 3? And I'd be honest, I did not expect this to come out this soon. Yeah, so let's get this reaction going. Also, the movie videos won't come out till tomorrow and Saturday. Maybe Monday. Well, we'll have to see. Well, let's get, set the camera. Here we go. And also, sorry, I had the, what was that noise from earlier? It's my AC. Alright, let's get this going. I love Norse gods in DBS, by the way.
Hidden in the sacred library of Asgard, two deities were diligently exploring the countless scrolls and books stored in its halls.
This is just incredible. We've been here only for a short time, yet I've already learned so much about the culture and techniques your people practice. I feel like I am only scratching the surface. These notes on the Kai change my perspective on teleportation's limits entirely.
That is very kind of you to say, young one. This library is my husband Odin's greatest achievement. It stores knowledge gathered since the dawn of creation, from every universe, and even beyond.
Knowledge? From beyond the known universes? Amazing. I'm frankly embarrassed to say that we Kai pale in comparison in this regard.
It's only natural. We Asgardians may know these things, but a Kai is a creator. Without you, none of us would be here.
The Supreme Kai Shin greatly enjoyed having the ear of the goddess Freya. It was a rare occurrence for him to meet someone much older than himself, and even rarer for that person to have any form of grace. It reminded him of the studies he had undertaken in his youth, so very long ago now, before he could get too lost in thought. The Kai's eyes were drawn to a darker area of the massive library, a place that gave off a deep sadness. It looked in disarray, with cobwebs covering broken shelves and dusty scrolls.
Forgive me if this comes across as rude, Lady Freya, but may I ask why that section of the library is so unkempt?
Freya remained silent, but Shin noticed a solemn look on her face. Not wanting to cause insult, he decided to satiate his curiosity by approaching the area himself. The books here were not translated. They were in ancient Asgardian runes, and were largely unreadable to him. But he had managed to pick up more of the language during his studies here, and could make out the runes that stood above the entrance of this section.
Names of the lost. My word, a memorial left to be forgotten? How horrible.
Shin reacted strongly, without realizing how his words could have affected Freya. But before either god could respond to the comment, the ground beneath them swept them off their feet, as the books of the library crashed onto the floor. The whole of Asgard, the 9 worlds, all shook at once from the force of a finishing blow. On the battlefield, Thor, the god of thunder, towered over the small frame of Beerus, the god of destruction. Beerus' aura faded, and the giant bolt of lightning left Thor's body, before the giant fell to the ground with a sudden impact.
I suppose I should be kind and say the Saiyan already had you in a weakened state, but honestly, I don't think you stood a chance to begin with.
Thor had been struck down in a single blow from the destroyer, and now lay dead on the ground next to Son Goku.
No way!
The surrounding gods were outraged. This was supposed to be a one-on-one death match, a sacred tradition in their realm, and one that was punishable by death. Tyr, the god of war, was the first to speak up.
You fiend! Thou hast broken not only our traditions, but the honor of your warrior. He had fought well and deserved a warrior's death, not the shame of being saved by the likes of you. Oh, would you like to repeat that, little god?
Tyr, wisely, backed away.
You can't allow this, All-Father. Please, allow me to face him and avenge Thor.
Odin finally arose from his throne, stretching his back before squinting in what felt like some obvious pain.
Rest easy, old friend. You're well aware of the cycle we live in thanks to Valhalla. You would be vanquished the moment you stood before that fellow. Now, Beerus is my foe.
The old god finished stretching his tired body, and with a sigh, unleashed a wave of power from his tired frame that sent Tyr and any nearby being, be they mortal or god, hurtling backwards through the sheer force of his energy.
I'm going to say this once, old man. I'm taking my Saiyan and I'm going back home for a long nap, understand?
No, I don't think you will.
Of course you'd say a bothersome thing like that. Whis, here!
Beerus casually kicked Goku to where Whis was standing, allowing the angel to guard them from any damage the upcoming battle
Oh,
may
that should
occur.
be interesting.
My Lord Beerus, have you grown to care for this Saiyan?
Don't make me laugh, Whis. I just know if I got Lord Zeno's favorite toy blown up, I'd have hell to pay.
Ain't that true?
You've got a point there, my lord.
Beerus floated to meet Odin in the sky, the two ancient powers making the battle between Goku and Thor look quaint by just standing next to each other. Their auras slowly came into shape, clashing against each other without the two moving a muscle. At their level of power, just the intensity of their divine ki could kill lesser beings. So wisely, Whis placed a barrier around the arena, not to protect the bystanders, but to make sure none of the delicious food stalls were affected by the War of Auras.
It's been a few billion years and you've gotten old. Sure you're up for this, Gramps?
As the two deities faced off, Magni and Modi, the children of Thor, ran towards the source of their anger, the fallen son Goku, leading them straight into the path of Whis, who was enjoying a tasty beverage.
He can't be dead. It's all this guy's fault.
Dad's tough. Don't worry about it. It's not the first time he's kicked a bucket. What I want to know is, hey, tall lady, how's it being grandpa and that cat?
Brother? I think that's a guy.
Huh? But they're so pretty.
Whis laughed at the antics of the children, then knelt down to answer the young god's question.
I cannot speak for All-Father Odin's interest in this conflict, but I'm fairly certain of Lord Beerus's. The two have battled once before, long ago, when my lord was still in his earliest centuries as a destroyer. The young universe was a chaotic and dangerous place. The fires of creation had ended eons ago, but the reverberations could still be felt all across the many systems being formed throughout the universes. The seventh of them, in particular, was a thriving, wild, and magical place, filled with secrets that have long been forgotten, and powers that still lay dormant. One of those caught the attention of my lord, who was still early in his tenure as a god. He had taken to enjoying special foods to pass the time of his immortality, and was much pickier as a youth. He would refuse any food that didn't at least have some type of myth associated with it, leading many cultures to start including food celebrations in their holidays, just so they could have an excuse to appease the hungry destroyer. One of those mythic meals, however, was no lie. The mead of poetry was said to reside on a planet of giants. Its taste was so divine, just a few drops could make a buffoon into a scholar. A whole glassful could give an insight into the rhythm and rhyme of the universe itself. My lord didn't really care about any greater knowledge, but the idea of the taste of such a thing made him seek it out. We arrived on planet Easts and ventured into the snowy wasteland in search of some of the locals, who could lead him to the drink he so desired. I assure you, Lord Beerus, my staff is not picking up on any signs of life on this planet. I'm afraid we've reached yet another dead end.
No, it has to be here. The Oracle said so. At least I think so. It's been a few years since we started searching. The details are a bit fuzzy.
You really should rest more, my lord. Sleep does wonders for the mind.
Ha! Please, Whis. I'm a god in my prime. There's no need to sleep. I have things to eat and people to battle. After that, I'll let you pick the alarm clock.
Very well, my lord.
The two continued to trek through endless snow, despite their great speed. Searching every inch of a snow-covered planet still took a while. However, just as things were seemingly hopeless, and Beerus was about to just blow up the rock and be done with it, he noticed a giant sitting by a pot of what seemed to be ale.
Yo, you there, big fellow! You wouldn't happen to be guarding the mead of poetry, would you?
Yup, I am.
Aha! See, Whis, you should trust my judgment. Otherwise, I'll destroy you.
Very well, my lord.
Beerus approached the giant. Now that he was on the ground, he could see just how big the behemoth really was. Towering over mountains, with the pot of mead that nearly came up to his chest.
Now, in case you weren't aware, I'm the god of destruction of this universe. The mighty and handsome Lord Beerus. It would be wise of you to allow me a taste of that drink so I'll stay in a good mood.
Why are you in a bad mood, mate?
No, I mean I'll stay happy, like I am now. Happy. And not in a mood to break things like this planet.
Never seen no one break a planet before.
It's quite easy for someone on my level. Now again, would you please give me a drink of your mead?
Don't believe you.
Beerus turned to
Oh,
Whis, who
Lord!
was trying not to laugh at the events. The young destroyer was quickly losing what little patience he had.
Listen, you oaf, I'm a god of destruction. I can wipe out this entire universe if I wanted.
Now that's just silly. Here, why don't you prove it?
You're that eager to die.
The giant simply reached into his pocket and pulled out a small cat, holding it as gently as he could with his gigantic hands. He placed it onto the ground as it looked up at Beerus, smiling and meowing at what it thought was a fellow kitten.
If you can lift my kitten, I'll believe you're who you say you are, and give you as much of my mead as you'd like.
Beerus was going to destroy the giant and the kitten in that instant for the insult alone, but was stopped by Whis, who thought that playing along would be a good test for the god in training. It was important to learn how to deal with mortals after all. Beerus sighed before deciding to play along. He'd be lying if it wasn't at least more interesting than flying around in the snow. He reached down with one hand and attempted to pick up the cat, only for it not to budge. Confused, Beerus tried again, this time using a bit more power. Still, nothing. Irritated now, Beerus used both his hands, unleashing another partial bit of his power. Nothing. Whis at this point was now howling with laughter.
Silence, Whis. This is nothing. Watch!
The Hakaishin powered up. The world around them cracked. Continents flew off the planet. Lava from the core shot up from the ground. The entire system was being destroyed by the force Beerus was exerting. Yet still,
Still
the
nothing!
cat did not move.
Oh my goodness! How heavy is that cat?
Seems like you was lying. If you can't even lift my kitten.
Beerus was
Oh,
furious.
snap. Here we
He was humiliated, he was exhausted, and most of all, now he was even more thirsty than before. He had enough of this. No one spoke to him like that. It was more than enough reason to destroy a mortal.
You'll get to see firsthand, fool. Now, have any last words?
Yes. In fact, I do.
The giant suddenly shrunk in size as a wind swirled around the figure. Beerus, looking on in shock,
No
as
way,
the
that's...
being's true form was revealed.
I'm disappointed to see a god reduced to a childish tantrum from a simple trick. You don't deserve a drop of my mead. And now, I'll teach you how a true deity settles matters.
Now, back in the present, Whis finished telling his story to the boys, though how much they were paying attention is unknown. As in the skies above them, Odin and Beerus had been engaged in a battle like no Asgardian had ever witnessed. The powers of destruction versus the magic of the old ways, distorting reality around them and threatening to break it before their very eyes. From this distance, it was hard to tell who was winning, the two figures moving at such speed that they became blurs, even to godly vision.
That was how their first battle started. And ever since the outcome of it, Lord Beerus hasn't been the same. Though now, it's looking as if the tables have turned.
Odin crashed to the ground, his face smacking into the stony soil. He didn't have time to compose himself as Beerus summoned a tremendous orb of fiery ki and unleashed it, forcing the god to turn his staff towards it, opening a portal very similar to those used by Anilaza of the Third Universe, that absorbed the ki blast and then opened it behind Beerus. The destroyer, however, was still a trainee of Whis and had some measure of instinct, and so used the newly opened portal himself, dodging through the blast with a Hakai, then appearing directly in front of Odin himself, his hands smashing the old god's face back into the dirt.
You've given me a decent workout. Been ages since I've had to try this hard against non-destroyers. Really, it's impressive, but you've lost your edge. Time beat you long before I did. Must be such a burden for you false immortals.
Time hasn't changed you a bit. You're still falling for tricks, Beerus.
Suddenly, the seemingly defeated old man stood up, holding Beerus's hand in a vice-like grip. Beerus tried to move away, but Odin held it tighter, with such force that Beerus couldn't even focus ki into it. Then, in a burst of motion, he kicked Beerus away with enough power to throw the wind from the feline's chest. As the destroyer tried to shake himself out of the pain that overcame his body, he was stunned to see Odin revealed in all his true power, regaining the image of his youth, as if he hadn't aged a day.
I have many enemies. The most powerful in the 9 realms will always be under siege. Unlike you, I do not care for people to live in fear of me. My children deserve to surpass their father. So I age. I pretend to be weak, to be mortal. But you shall know, Destroyer, that the boundaries of mortality are simply a choice for me. A robe to wear for comfort. And now, I choose to show you true divinity.
As Odin's staff transformed into his enchanted spear, Beerus cracked his neck, grinning ear to ear with excitement. Honestly, he was disappointed that Odin seemingly had grown weak. Now, this was his chance for revenge, for a real fight, where after all these years since he lost against Odin, he could finally go all out.
Come then, All-Father,
Enlighten me.
Back in the library of Asgard, Shin had been trying to find a way to investigate what was causing such gigantic surges of energy. Yet it felt like the halls of the library had become a labyrinth.
Are you sure this is the way we came?
Alright. Yeah, my little brother's movie ended.
You may have just lost track of time. There is no rush. We can continue to study these halls as we please.
As wonderful as that sounds, I really must go. Perhaps I should try to teleport. It'll be much quicker that...
As Shin was about to finish his statement, he was cut across the face by a dagger, barely managing to save himself by moving away in reaction.
Lady Freya, what is the meaning of this?
You really are a fool. It would have been so much simpler if you stayed quiet and read your books.
The beautiful goddess transformed into the god of lies, Loki. He'd been disguised the entire time. The whereabouts of the real Freya had been unknown, but Loki's powerful magic had made it a simple task to fool the Kai. Shin was terrified, but now knew something had been wrong the entire time. This entire trip must have been a trap, and they'd fallen for it. He had to warn the others, but every time he moved to use his Kai-Kai, Loki was on top of him in an instant. The god was far more powerful than Shin, and even more skilled in the use of magic, trapping the Kai in a binding circle, preventing him from jumping away.
Why are you doing this? We mean your people no harm.
It's nothing personal. In fact, I quite like you. It's mainly as a favor to Odin. We know your destroyer can be a handful, and if things look bad, all I have to do is kill you. Then Beerus won't be an issue.
I see. Then if I may, perhaps you should have reconsidered the threat in that plan.
Oh? Does the little Kai have some teeth after all?
You should never have brought me to a library.
Shin's eyes glowed as he unleashed a spell of his own. A barrier surrounded him and gave him enough time to focus his energy, to pierce
Oh
through
man, I
the
can't be
veil
left
of
alone for
chaos.
5 minutes. Sorry, my little brother's always comes in for
From the
the time.
knowledge he had gained from the brief study here, tried a method of teleportation far more powerful than he or any Kai had ever dreamed of.
Not bad. Though, given where he tried to jump to, he's probably going to get killed just attempting it. Oh well.
Meanwhile, things were looking even worse for the god of destruction. Odin's power was on an entirely different level than before. Every one of his attacks was countered and turned against him. Beerus was able to dodge many of Odin's attacks thanks to his limited knowledge of Ultra Instinct, but it was nowhere near enough to deal with this true Odin. The old god had studied all types of fighting in his long life, absorbing knowledge with an insatiable hunger. And, on top of that, the raw power he boasted surpassed any god of destruction, including Beerus. He hated to admit it, but the likelihood of winning was growing distant. Still, he wasn't going to give up now that he finally had a real challenge.
You're just full of surprises, old man. But don't you dare get cocky!
Beerus pushed even further past his limits and summoned a barrage of orbs. This time, were charged with Hakai energy. Each one alone could wipe a being from existence. The hundreds he was holding above his head could wipe out all of Asgard.
Such simple tactics.
Odin raised his hand in the air, and a black orb appeared in his palm. Then, it continued to grow denser, forming a wall of gravity many times stronger than a natural black hole. He threw it as Beerus launched his volley of Hakai orbs, the two colliding as the orbs were sucked and crushed by the concentrated forces of Odin's attack.
A modified attack from the second universe. And this...
You
Odin
kidding
appeared
me?
behind Beerus, who tried to respond with a spinning kick aimed at the Allfather, only to be met with a punch to the face, not being able to react at all to the blow.
A technique from Universe 6's assassin.
You bastard! You think stolen moves can beat me?
Beerus exploded in a fury, sending out a barrage of punches and kicks towards Odin, actually pushing the Asgardian on the back foot, as even he struggled to keep up with the sudden increase in Beerus' speed. Odin tried to time skip once more, but Beerus predicted the angle of attack and greeted Odin with a punch directly to the face. However, after landing the punch, Beerus felt a sharp pain spread up his arm, as if he'd been infected by something.
No.
You should be careful when you attack. That poison is far stronger than what you'd find used by the Ninth Universe.
The Destroyer tried to fight through
That?
the pain,
He
but
watched
wanted to give
it.
up his advantage, and unleashed a massive surge of blasts from his body. Again, each filled with destruction energy. When it looked like Odin had been struck, Beerus finally let himself smile, only to be horrified when the real Odin appeared unharmed. The one being struck by the Hakai was only a decoy.
The Yardratians of the Seventh Universe have mastered this technique. Multiplication can be a useful tool.
Beerus snarled with rage,
God.
desperate
I'll be
to
right
try and
back.
find a weakness in Odin's
If y'all hear my brother's screaming, I'm apologize.
techniques.
I really need.
But every time he tried a new angle of attack, the ancient scholar simply responded with another stolen move.
How many years have you lived? with the gift of immortality. And how many of them did you waste sleeping? I play the fool, but I do not squander a second of my eternal life. What exactly have you accomplished, Lord Beerus?
Pissing you off, for one thing.
Eventually, as the damage piled up, Beerus was finally struck by Odin's spear. One that, when thrown, would always follow its target, no matter how many tried to avoid it, stabbing Beerus in the gut and impaling him to the ground. The god was tough, and despite the pain, pulled the spear from his wound and got onto his feet, while Odin showed only a broken nose and some minor cuts for all of Beerus' effort.
Just what was all this for? What the hell do you want with Son Goku?
He will be the savior of Asgard. And now, so will you.
I don't know what you're talking about, but if you're going to kill me, get it over with. Your breath does more damage than your attacks.
Beerus grinned before turning his head as Odin grabbed him by the neck. He couldn't even raise his arms, but he could give one final look to Whis.
Whis, you were so bad as a servant.
It has been my honor to serve, Lord Beerus.
Odin allowed Beerus this final goodbye before raising his hand to the god's face.
This technique took me eons to understand, but thanks to you, I can finally grasp its inner
He
workings.
doesn't.
Hakai!
Beerus spat in Odin's face as one last act of defiance before the universe said god of destruction was seemingly erased from existence. Odin let out a tired sigh. It had been an exhausting battle, and most of his energy had run out. For a brief moment, he sensed something in the distance, as if he was being watched. But it quickly vanished, and the All-Father's attention refocused.
Sneaky
He still had one
bastard.
final task, and approached the area where Whis was standing beside Son Goku. He shared one look with the angel, unsure if the being would interfere. But Odin understood that above all, no matter what, the angels would never meddle in the affairs of the universe.
Now then, it's your turn, Goku, champion of Universe 7. Hakai!
Bastard. The fu- Okay. Okay, that caught me off guard. Well, the ending. And then I get the feeling that Supreme Kai probably saved him. I'm betting it. I cannot wait for the finale. Alright, that's gonna be it. Make sure you watch my previous reaction from Geeks for Fun. And don't forget to hit the bell icon so you won't miss this video and my future videos. That's it. That's Mega Blue Charizard. I'll see you on the next video. Peace out.